the universe speaking to you. You are now tuned into the Modern Spiritual Life Coaching Podcast by the certified master life coach and spiritual guide, Coach Chip. Welcome, souls. We now begin this episode of a transformational journey. Unedited, unscripted, and creating something from nothingness. Now, let there be light on Modern Spiritual Life Coaching.
Welcome to the Modern Spiritual Podcast Live. I'm Alchemy Coach Chip. This is episode number 88. This episode is about spiritual traps and the dead Generation Z. And I'm about to explain in this podcast why in all the past episodes of how I did things to get to where we are now. The reasons for this, out of the garage, as I call the program for this podcast, is because these things that we talk about, spiritual traps, Generation Z, and what's driving all this stuff for change and the evolution, takes more time to explain. I've only got so much live airtime, and that's already scheduled and booked for 30 days. So what I do live has to be pretty much under an unscripted, unedited programming, because it's all scheduled time. Things that are going to take more time, like 45 minutes to an hour on one podcast, they have to be recorded. And then it's usually the old stuff that comes up into the new stuff. And then we talk about this here, and then on the next podcast, that's where things really get heated up, and that's where you become into an understanding of what's going on. And that's why I said spiritual traps is this episode. I recorded another episode about how I am doing, and I never aired it. It's kind of like a songwriter, writing a lot of songs, putting them down on tracks, and some don't ever get released. And the majority of them do get released. But some of them just don't get released for some whatever reason. Just recorded and stuff in the archives. On this round that we're doing is about the evolution that's taking place in the now. And this gets into the drive, the financial, the wealth, we can call it the money. But 9 months ago, when I first started this podcast, I went on the past and present experiences. We never talked about money. We talked about struggles and things that were related to that. But it was never about how to manifest and make money. Because that is the main component. There's other mechanics that you need to learn first, such as relationships, health, business, career, health and wellness, and many other things that go to the root. Those are the mechanics that are all part of our everyday life that we have to balance and understand in fullness. When you get to the drive part, the main drive, that's where the money is, and that's how you become very successful of how you make your money, how you spend it, how you invest it, because you then understand the mechanics behind it. The other day, this podcast has reached many people and a lot of different plateaus, organizations, and backgrounds. And there was one younger guy that I watch on YouTube, talked about stocks, talked about many other different things. And he does a real good job. I listen to him because he's pretty good. And just the other day when he was talking about the stimulus money and all this stuff that's going on with the corona, he's on the edge of trying to keep it straight because he's got a lot of pressure on him because he's got investments, he's real estate, he does all this other stuff, and he's got to sit and he's doing videos on YouTube. And he started learning the truth of how this government really is and what it means. But he's got a lot of education behind him, which he learned in his younger years, in his early 20s, and had a family, and he became successful at his age. Very rare type. But he went on the fundamentals that he was taught in school and colleges, and he did pretty well with it. But he did it that way that we were taught from Generation X, the baby boomers. Generation Z. The baby boomers, which are my parents. They're about 70, 75, 80. That's why we call it the dying boomers, because they're retired and they're at the end. They're not going to continue on forever. So Generation X steps up. The millennials, which is you guys, the listeners, are learning from Generation X, my generation, of what's going on, because you guys are confused and trying to figure this out, and you want to be successful, but sometimes you felt like you had a bad deal dealt to you. And you got similarities of Generation X because we're closely together here, right? My wife's that way. She was born in 1983. She's the same generation of millennia. I'm Generation X, and I'm trying to explain this to her. She's kind of got cross-confusion going on because she's going with flow. She wants to have fun in life. She wants to have a great relationship, but there's a problem. It's all these belief systems that are stacked against the millennia and the newer one that we'll talk about tomorrow called the artist. That's the next generation underneath the millennia. This is where it's going to get very interesting. And you say, well, what is it, all the past and present experiences about the stuff that we talked about, or I have heard you talk about, add up to this? And it's very simple. The mechanics is part of our belief system, our subconscious mind, that reflects on our health and reflects on other things of our life that have made it hard, struggling, and confusion. So when you understand why, where your barriers are coming from, how you sabotage things, how you create things, after you learn all of that good stuff, the mechanics, then you get to drive. Everybody's trying to drive, put the money in their pocket, live the high lifestyle, be rich, be an investor and all this, and live the life they always dreamed of, but don't know anything of the mechanics of how it works. Now, the soft drink industry has released out some information about how they are going to put a cap on their supply of sodas and beer because they have an aluminum can shortage, which they don't. But that's what they're telling people because they used to. The baby boomers are so much. They have built themselves on lies. They've done it. And how I know this is because my parents are baby boomers, and the way they talk to me and how I was raised and what they said to me, it all sounds too familiar. So what I did, being at my 50th mark, last year I started tearing apart my life, my inner side that makes this thing tick, and find out why I was not making my accomplishments and where are my setbacks and why are they happening. And then, like many of us, fall into spiritual traps. And a lot of people that were trying to get rich used the spirituality and misunderstood it and lied about it to make money on it. So a lot of us that want to change, as souls being here on a mission, are trying to find our guide. And we have to do a lot of cleaning first. We got to clean up all this stuff. So the Modern Spiritual Podcast, which was known as the Modern Spiritual Life Coaching Podcast, started out that way. And then we realized as we went on, as we were coming to the mechanics and what was driving this stuff and how and what this was all about, we were taking down the boundaries and the confines that the old generation put up. And we got to take things down and you got to reorganize it. We got to change it to a better understanding. Because back in the day, the way the baby boomers were, I can tell you the way they were. This is where, I know my parents would disagree in a way, but this is where the greed came from. This is where the rudeness and all that bad behavior came from. And this is the way they were. In the day when they were smoking and they were having fun and they were making money and they had their jobs, we were young kids were sitting back watching that, being programmed. And then when it was our turn to go have that same fun that we saw, our parents were no longer doing that. They stopped it. Then they came out and said, you can't do that. So at that point, we turned around and became rebellious. And, well, how come we can't do it? You did it. And they did that with everything we did. It's like a piece of pie. Great smelling key lime pie. And you can see it. And you can smell it. You can have a little taste of it. But you go get your own. And you want to make your own pie? I'll teach you how to do that. But I'm going to leave out some of the ingredients. Because we want it all. And we want it our way until we decide we don't want it no more. And we must have it all. That's the old school way. That's why a lot of us in Generation X want to see mom baking or cooking something in there, or dinner or snacks or desserts, and mom will give us a little taste. Here's a little piece. And we all want more. We can only have a little bit. We can't have all of it. We can only have a very little bit of it. And behind everybody's back, mom and dad were sitting in front of the TV, eating that pie all down. You come home and you say, well, what happened to the pie? Oh, it's all gone. Well, who ate it? They won't say nothing. Trying to hide it, but it had to come out. And then they say, oh, we did. We were hungry. And that's the way the baby boomers were, and still are. That's why they're in Washington. Look at Pelosi, Trump, Harry Reid. Name after name, they're all in their 70s and 80s. They're all old school, and they've been in there forever. And they made all kinds of money. And they wanted to control things and do it their way. You can have very little. If they got a lot of money, they'll give you money, but then they're going to take it back. Or they're going to make it go up and down. They're going to sit back and laugh. That's a great joke. Put struggle, aggression on you. That's the way the baby boomers are. Look at Rush Limbaugh. When I first got the radio in 1987, Rush Limbaugh was the big guy. He was just becoming big. He was the mouthpiece for the baby boomers. And he should be retired now. All like all of them in Washington. They made enough money. They could retire. Oh, no, they're going to continue. Until they die. They're not going to retire. They're going to make all this money, and then after they're dead, they're going to say, you can have it. We don't care what you do with it because we're dead. That's the mentality of baby boomers. And that's only scratching the surface of the way they are. And it caused a lot of struggles, hardships, and bad experiences because of that programming. And we were always told growing up, well, this is the way it is. It's the way the government is. It's the way the medical is. It's the way pharma is. No, that's the way they wanted it to be. So with all the stuff that we learned, or I've experienced, through the very beginning to now, I understand in fullness why all this has happened, why this is all happening, and how it's working at the end. And the words say, don't say nothing to nobody, because no one's going to believe you. Or they're not going to take you serious. Or they won't hear, or they won't listen to you. That's the mentality of a baby boomer. But my listeners are millennials. They don't have the mentality of a baby boomer, and they weren't raised like the baby boomers Generation X was. So they have more of a clarity. They will listen more, but they're doing a rebuttal. That's why they're doing it in Washington. They're changing the law enforcement, the police, the government structure. Everything that's all changing. And they say, oh, it's the falling Roman Empire. It's got to have change because they're going to leave us to run this place their way. Well, we're going to change it our way. But see, baby boomers are this way. We want all of it, and we want to be part of the beginning of it. And then after we see how it runs, and we pat ourselves on the back, and we got more money in our pocket, and we're ready to die on our deathbed, then you guys can do whatever. That's what they are. And it's frustrating if you don't understand it. And if you are a Generation X like me, you will say this is all sounding too familiar from your own parents and relatives. So we leave our religion, and it gets replaced by spirituality. And we study that until we have the great understanding of the true meaning. And then that becomes replaced in a way we call atheist. You start to feel like you're an atheist because you're getting in between that next level. And that next level is a big struggle. Every level has a struggle at the very end. It has a demon at the end of it that you got to fight. And the demon in this one here is the baby boomers. I got a baby boomer now trying to play the game on me with this loan thing and his lies and cheats. And he doesn't think I know the truth to it. I told him he has the truth. This is one generation X I know. I've already been up against the baby boomers. I didn't lose anything to them. And that's why they didn't like me, because I knew what they were doing. And they always say to me, this is the way it is. Like it and shut up. That's what they taught us. And I didn't want to be that way. I chose to be different. Now here's a good example that's going on now in the Philippines in generation change as well. All generations are changing in 100 years. And I know this because my wife's Filipino and I married in the Philippines. The old generation in the Philippines went by the old culture. And this old culture was you were taken care of by your parents, and then when you're old enough to go out there and make money, you go out there and make money, panhandle it, do whatever, and come back and give it to your parents and support your parents. That was a really old school way of doing things. And you eat rice every day. And you do this and you do it this way. It's the Filipino way. Then in the last few years, and this is the generation my wife stuck into the culture, because that's what she was taught by her parents, the old way. Generation Z, that's dying, taught her that when they were growing up. So she's stuck in that, and she believes that. Like we believe our own belief systems, what our parents told us. Just because they told us that doesn't mean it was right. It wasn't the thing to do. But she's stuck in that part. The newer generation, which is the younger generation of the Philippines, don't see it that way. They believe they should work and make the money and put it in their pocket and keep it for themselves and feed their family, their own wife and kids. And I was told that by a Filipino judge when I got married. That's the way it is. That's the way they want it to be. But they have to appease the older generation too. So the newer generation, those generations are teaching their kids that you grow up, get a job, make money, and keep it for yourself. If you can help your family out, you can help your family out then, if they're going through tough times. My wife doesn't understand this cross confusion of the generation change. And she's got two other sisters that back her up. We got to do it the Filipino way, this way Mom taught us, this way Dad taught us, this way it works. And that's hard when you got reinforcement like that. So you feel you're outcasted. And you don't want to be outcasted, right? You want to be part of the family, or you will feel left out, like you're the black sheep of the family. She's going through that. I understand it because I've been through it. And that's what they're now just starting with the stock market, like we did here in 1929 on the Great Depression, when the banks and the brokers said, well, let's bring this economy out of the hole. If you guys people are broke, we'll just offer the stock market and they can own part of a stock of a company. The Philippines are now starting to do that. How many decades are they behind? Very behind. But that's what they're doing. They're mocking what the United States has already done. And now this generation is about ready to change over to my generation the monetary system, the credit system, the whole shabeel. And guess what? We're giving the old way to the people in the Philippines so they can carry on the old stuff, because we always hand the old stuff down to the third world countries. And at this point, it then becomes a secret of what Generation Z did, because they don't want us to know all the secrets, so they're going to change it before and tell us this is the new thing you're going to do. They always done it. They got to have the last say in everything. They got to start it first and they got to finish it last. Well, we don't want you to know what we were doing and all our tricks and how we did it. So we're going to change this over and we're going to show you how you should be doing this. They just don't know when to give up, do they? Till they're dead in their grave. And this is why there's a revolt to this country wanting to change. And that's what this whole thing's about, coronavirus and everything. I know we said it and mentioned that it was universal virus. Yes, it is. It's an energy. But the impact of it is the belief system that they're trying to imply here, and you get what you believe. I'll leave it at that. So in the past episodes and the archives, those were the mechanics. And now the main drive we're looking at. This is an alternative spiritual program with no boundaries and no confining, like they did in the old days. We tore the walls down. So we can live a better life. Now, out of this whole thing, some are going to get rich. A lot are going to have new businesses and live a good lifestyle. They'll come out of poor and become, middle class and have a business and be in the spot that I'm in. Those guys are going to move up. And then some are just going to not get it and not be positioned right, and they're going to fall behind, or they're going to go ahead, or they're going to stay right where they are. And that's why I positioned myself when I was 33 years old. I didn't understand why I did it, but I did it. Because I'm being guided by the universe, and all that information is coming back to me saying, this is what you should do, because this was coming up. And that's what we do. And we're going to get into more about spiritual traps, because that's where the confusion comes in about the law of attraction, quantum mechanics and physics of how this all works. And this stuff does all work, but it was the baby boomers that are saying it don't work. That's all garbage. And they clouded us to say, hey, guess what? Because if they didn't cloud it, their plan wouldn't work. We'd be in a different direction, doing a different thing, and whatever they say and do, we'd ignore with them, and they'd be sitting there with a thumb up their butt, going, well, I wonder why it didn't work. They had to interfere with our belief system and with our internal programming to block the stuff that we were going to learn that really worked. And that's why I rewired and I reprogrammed myself in the earlier days. My parents didn't want me to do it. They're saying, you're going crazy, you're going nuts. They got my brothers telling me, oh, you're going to go nuts, you're going to go crazy. But I remember the things you did. Well, that was back then. That was because we were baby boomers. We could do it. But you can't do it. I continued on with my path. And those fences I tore down. They put them up, I tore them down. They put them up, I tore them down. Then they gave up. And then now they're listening to what I'm saying. They're probably sitting there saying, laughing, saying, he figured it out. And now, this stuff that they're talking about in the evolution that's happening now with the monetary system and the credit systems and with the economy and with the retail divisions and all that, they talked about this back in the day when I was growing up. It was talked about. The Chuck Harders, the Rush Limbaughs, they all talked about this stuff. They were called radicals. Nobody wanted to believe them back then. But I listened, and I knew, and over the decades of learning this stuff, I put it together. So when I got to the spot where we are now, I understand it fully because this ain't my first rodeo. I've heard this before, and I've heard it in action. Time and time again. This is what Washington's trying to say. The sky's falling. The sky's falling. It really ain't. That's what they're using COVID for it. I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast because the alternative spirituality that we are speaking here and in other programs, you don't want to miss. This is a whole new outlook of spirituality and about generation. For some, it will help. For some, you may not care about it. But the ones that don't care about it and don't take an interest in it, you're going to hurt from it. Yep. The ones like me and the ones that listen to the programs and programs like this, you guys are going to succeed. You guys are going to be ahead of everybody. And you're going to say, yeah, the guy was right. So that's why if you look at our profile and our bio out there on Specker, and you're going to start to see on our profiles that are changing to what we're really saying what it is, and it's going to give you more clarity. Some, it will give an aha moment. And this makes me understand the younger generation more now and why they are the way they are. And it's okay to feel that way because it ain't your fault. You guys did exactly what my generation did, but they called it rebellious back then. Oh, he's rebelling, and things to that nature. And by the end of next month, we're going to have the spiritual traps all wrapped up. So you will understand the difference between a spiritual trap and the true meaning of spirituality, and what is good and what is not, and what these other people were doing. A lot of people went out there and took advantage of the spirituality. They went out, took a course from a medium or took a course of some type. They said, oh, I can fool people on this. They went on Facebook and many other social medias, and they went on to the what? How did they screw them? They went to somebody that was what? Less knowledgeable, that had severe problems, that were stuck. Instead of helping them, they made them believe that they were helping them, but they were taking their money and laughing behind the back. That's going to give you bad karma to do that kind of stuff. So, very interesting how this thing twists. And that's why I give myself a middle of the week, which I go an indie music row. And I play music because music brings the flow to me. And then in the middle of the week, I want to see what's going on and what I can bring for the best podcast to you. All our podcasts are in truth. I broke it down. I have talked to my clients. My clients have broke it down. We come to an understanding the difference between the truth. And it's amazing because it gives you a lot more clarity. That cloud that was there, it goes away. It's a sunny day again. The sun is shining. I can see the sky. And at night I can see the stars. And you can go out and relax and then make your future plans. And understand where you're going and how you're going to get there. Man, we were led to believe about obstacles and struggles. Oh, they're part of life. I heard the baby boomers tell me that. You're going to always have ups and downs in your lifetime. Oh, no. Oh, no. You're talking duality. And they create the duality because that generation loves to go out of control and manipulate up and down when they want it. They take it when they want it, and they crash it when they don't want it no more. It was like when I was in school. I had, we had something that was good, and like a glass jar with candy in it, and had little toys and knickknacks in there and stuff like that. It was cool. It was the coolest thing we saw. And the bully in the schoolyard handed it, said, "I want that." And he went over to the younger kid and he whipped it out of his hand. And when he took it out of his hand, he turned around and said, "It's mine now." And looked at it, and the kid cried and said, "I want it back," and all this other stuff, right? The bully turns around and goes, "Nah, I'm not going to give it back to you." And he bullied him for a while. Then after he had his fun and it's starting to get boring, the bully goes, "All right, I can give it back to you." And he takes it and he smashes it on the ground and it goes into 1,000 pieces. And it shatters and everything goes everywhere. The kid starts to cry, "You broke my gift." And the bully says, "It was not a big deal anyway. I didn't want it. It was stupid." Because he couldn't have it without the big confrontation, he decided that he would break it, and then now you can have it back, because I can't have it. And that's where the jealousy thing came in from many years in relationships, about if I can't have her or him, no one can. That was baby boomer thinking. And that was a lot of that stuff that happened because they thought they could do whatever they wanted. Just like the millennials think they could do whatever they want. Just like Generation X said they could do whatever they wanted. All this is fight for power and leadership. And it's changing leadership and power over. So they're picking people. That's why the Obama was put in there. And they were picking people for the new generation to run the country and be behind it all. That's what that was all about. And they were picking certain ones. Because back in the day, when we had a businessman that was rich, like Trump. He was an older guy. There was Ross Perot. They all said, we can't put Ross Perot in there, the baby boomer said, because he's too old. They used that. He's too old. Oh, look at Reagan. Reagan was old. What if some of the other presidents were old? Not because they didn't want Ross Perot in. So then guess what happened? After all of that sham went away, they go pick Trump and put him in there in his 70s, right? And put all these older people in there now. Well, let's go back to originally what you guys were saying, that when Ross Perot was too old. Well, what about you guys? You guys are too old. They change the game when they want. They manipulate it, and they know how to do it, and they will bring the stock market up, and they'll bring it down. Oh, we feel like just making some money today, so we'll bring it up. We made enough money, now let's tear it down. We got to bring it back up again. And they will do this with everything that they think of and touch. It is a bad behavior problem that they programmed into a lot of us. And this is what we're fighting. We're not fighting the world. We're fighting the program that's inside us. And that's why when I talk about all the other stuff, adds up to what we're talking about now. And it makes sense now, doesn't it? Makes sense. Sure it does. So I wanted to do this to get this out into the air so you can be prepared for Friday's Friday. Because it's going to be one whopper of what you're going to hear in the first minutes of that podcast. And in this podcast, you're going to see change coming every week. And like you've been seeing the banners, you've been seeing the way things are being done. They're changing. Because we started at the very bottom, and we're coming to the top, and we're making our changes for everyone. And this stuff gets more interesting every day, every podcast. It's not about the same old stuff every day. But that answers the question to many people. Why ain't you talking about manifesting money? Everybody else is. There's a lady on YouTube that put a video up back in March and said, I'll show you how to manifest money my way within 2 hours. That video got 38,000 hits. Well, we know money's an illusion. It's paper. Ask Alexa. Alexa, what is money?
According to Wikipedia, money is any item or verifiable record that is generally accepted as payment for goods and services and repayment of debts, such as taxes, in a particular country or socio-economic context. The main functions of money are distinguished as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, a store of value, and sometimes a standard of deferred payment.
And it's a piece of what? Paper? Alexa? Money's a piece of paper?
Do you want to know the price for a piece of paper?
No, thank you. So Alexa will even tell you. And she'll explain this to you in definition. This creation, this stuff here is our Generation X's stuff. This is what we were planning. And we built it. And this is why we understand it and we use it. The older generation have a hard time changing over to text and phones and all that other stuff because that was their era. And then streaming on TV and stuff. Oh, they love it when they get into it. Oh, yeah, we love it. But That's the way the chips fall. And we're going to get deeper into this because there's other programs out there, podcasts out there, but we look at the alternative spirituality. That's what this is about. So we have a mixture of things that make and run that spirituality. And we break it down in its components so we understand how they work. So that when you're in the third dimension like we are, and something comes up, you know how to handle it. And you know that obstacles and struggles are within yourself. They're limitations of yourself. And other people can set those limitations from the outside if you are looking on the outside. Well, I'm not going to let you get that new car. I got a very good story here, what the bank did to a car that I had just recently, about 4 or 5 months ago, when they started with this COVID-19. I'll tell you what the bank did. 3 years ago, I wanted to purchase a car. I had a trucking business. I was out on the road a lot. I went into this dealer and I wanted a BMW. He says, we don't sell BMWs. We're Auto Nation. You have to go to a California store for the BMW. So I said, all right, I'll go. He says, no. How about something here that is equivalent to a BMW? So he said, an Acura. I didn't want to buy a new Acura because it's going to sit in a garage. I wanted something that was going to be a new, used, or used new car. And I got one. That was pretty old. And it's a good payment monthly. Didn't mind if it sat or not. It was a very nice car on the inside and out. Taken care of by a doctor very, very, very nicely. And it had 90,000 miles on it. I had 5 years on it. I said, I'll pay no more than $15,000 for it. It was fully loaded and everything, all the bells and whistles. So the dealership said, okay, $15,000. We worked at the numbers with the finance guy, and he said it would cost you no more than $18,000 in full price. I said, that's good. $360-something a month for payments. All right, that's good. So at that point, I turned around and I signed the papers, put down the $1,000 down payment, and 3 days later I get a phone call saying, you got approved, the bank's willing to do this and everything, but we have, a delivery date that we need to do. Okay. As soon as I get in there, they tell me something changed on the paperwork. So what's that? He goes, well, we went to the bank. The bank turned around and decided that the numbers were not correct, so they went up a little bit. Not just too much, but a little bit. It was from $18,000 to $23,000. So that's $5,000 more. I said, well, that's an Acura. Just because they said. So the bank remodified this thing after I was standing there ready to pick the car up on delivery. And they did this because they knew he wanted it at this price. We're going to play the game. We're going to give it to him what he wants now. We're going to get him locked into it. And don't tell him this until he's ready to pick it up and it's already been signed. Then it's too late for him to back out. It's exactly what they did, and that's a baby boomer thinking. And I got stuck with a higher payment slightly, and then I got 5 years in that car. So I said, well, I'm not going to drive it much, so I'm not going to put that many miles on it. And then I turned around and I drove it out. I stuck with it 5 years, so I paid off, no big deal. I have the car paid for. 3 years go by, and the bank calls me and says, hey, you know what? You only got $8,000 left on the car. So for $23,000, I only owe $8,000 more. So I paid $15,000 already into the car. Car has already been paid for at principal. There's $3,000 that would be interest only. Okay? They tacked on $5,000. They just made that number up, tacked it on there. So I would only owe $3,000. So realistically, the car and the interest was paid for. Already there. They made the money on the car because it wasn't even worth $15,000. And they knew this. So now they want the car back. And that's when I lost the business that last year. And then the beginning of the year, I was doing Uber and Lyft and not making a whole lot. And then the COVID-19. They waited until a pandemic. COVID-19. Then they started crying for their money. At this time, the car had 121,000 miles on it. Needed about $4,000 worth of work, a timing belt, new tires, all new brakes. It ran for Uber and Lyft. They didn't know it. Car's 10 years old. They thought the car was still going to be in good condition. And it'll be low miles and all that. They came back and took the car. I said, you can have it. Because it's not worth anything to me no more. Or nobody else. They thought they were going to take the car back, which they did. And then they tacked on an $8,000 bill. And they made it a $12,000 bill. Then they went from that for about 3 months. And then they got some money from the government for the COVID-19. And they jacked it down to $8,000. And so now you owe us $8,000. Never explained why, what happened to the other $4,000. But wait a minute, I only owed $5,000. Their numbers were being jaggedy. So here it is. Months later, I get a bill from them again saying, guess what? You now owe $8,000. They can't sell the car. Got a lien on it because of back taxes or what I owe for the state. They have to pay that debt, and they don't want to pay for it out of their pocket. And they got to auction it off, and they can't auction it off and sell it because it's got a lien on it. And they know this. So they're going to try to comp the money from me, or they're going to find out how long it will take me to pay out that $2,200. And then they're going to realize, guess what? It's going to be 2 years. 2 years the car would have been paid for in full, all bills. That will be up. This is the kind of game they played. With an old car, with a middle-aged man that lost the business. That's a baby boomer for you. And the baby boomer told the millennium, pull this. This is how we do business. And guess what? It backfired in the face because it's got a lien on the car. They can't sell it. And it needs $4,000 worth of work. It's got high miles on it. You're not going to give that car away because nobody wants that. They want the newer cars and with all the bells and whistles in it. That was 10-year-old technology. Nobody wants, not even a 16-year-old wants a 10-year-old technology. They're stuck with it. Now they don't know what they're going to do. It's their own fault. That's what karma does. But I said to the bank, you got collateral the car. And I gave you $15,000. So you should be able to be lenient and work with me on this. No, we don't have to. So they got a real good deal. That's how banks work. That's why I will not do another bank loan with nothing. Loan companies doing the same thing. They all do it, man. It's the baby boomer way. We know this. Generation X knows this. Baby boomers, we're going to continue to do it. Baby boomers say, I'm not paying you nothing. And Generation X is saying, I'm not paying you nothing, baby boomers. So baby boomers are at the end of their bread. They made their money. They lie, they cheat, they stole. They got away with it. Now they're dying. And what? Now they're going to hand it over to us and then set it up so they can cover up their secrets so we don't learn everything that they've done. It's a game. It's a game that mankind plays. God has nothing to do with it. But there's secrets to the spirituality that they don't want to tell people because it can overrule consciousness. But they got a majority of people, 97%, that they got restrained. The other 3 or 4% like me and others, and the ones that want to be like that 3% they can't get. They can't have it all, I say. That's what the baby boomers think and do. This is going to end this episode until Friday on the morning, and we're going to continue on with another episode, and this is going to have finance and about the illusion of money and credit and what urgently is taking place now. And you're going to learn more about this on Friday morning at 8 a.m. Arizona Mountain Time. Don't miss it. Download this one. Subscribe to our feed. Get on our Twitter at Chip_Coach. Get on our Twitter. Follow us. Go to our Facebook. Go to our page. It's modernspiritualpodcast.com, and that gives you everything there to follow us and stuff. And keep up with us because we've got a lot of change coming. And it's going to happen from now to the next 5 years. So there's a lot of information coming down the pipe. So wherever you are in the world, listening from, good day and a good night. Until the next episode, right here on the Modern Spiritual Podcast Live with Alchemy Coach Chip. And be safe with the COVID-19. And keep that 6 feet distancing. Wear the face mask. Keep the hands and surfaces clean. Until next time, ciao.